Welcome back to Finn vs. History. As ever, I'm joined by Horatio Gould.
It's only a game. Why you have to be made?
Today is the start of our biggest series yet. It's your most annoying colleague's favourite thing.
Yeah.
It's the Russian Revolution.
Well, it is my favourite thing.
Yeah,
so is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I just meant generally, but yeah. It's your favourite thing.
Ruski.
This is the long road to Gary Stevenson. It's that annoying guy from uni.
Yeah, Gary Stevenson, who's got the worst strip of all time, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the worst dressed bloke on TV, potentially.
Yeah, for a very rich man.
Famously rich.
He dresses worse than...
I was the smartest guy in the world when I was born. That's what he says.
Yeah. Also,
I was number one trader in the entire world.
Really? With clothes like that? Really? Also, what I find funny about him is he's always like, my mates can't feed their kids. It's like, you need to get some more friends, I think. I think if you're this rich and your friends still can't feed their kids...
Hey, Gary, elevate your circle. You know?
Yeah.
That's one of the big things about success. You got to elevate your circle.
Yeah, why are you still hanging out with the povos that can't feed their kids? You're the best trader in the world. In your own... Look at how he sits as well, that Stephen Bartlett interview. He's like a sort of snotty little school kid.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've finished already.
Well, he has finished already because he's the best trader in the world.
Exactly, he's completed it.
Done.
He's completed capitalism, and now he wants to go and shout at Christian Guru Murphy about how his mates can't feed his kids.
Feed his kids?
Yes.
Well, they shouldn't be feeding your kids anyway, Gary.
Gary Stevenson starts here. This is the start of a massive series about Gary Stevenson. This is the Russian Revolution. It's probably the central event, you could argue, in 20th century history.
I'd say so, probably.
Probably.
I guess because what it leads to the Cold War, a third of people live under communism. Because you'd say like the beginning domino of all of the shit that happens in the 20th century is World War One, right?
Well, possibly, but then you think about so many people came to power who later defined the 20th century because people were scared of the Russian Revolution. Yeah. People were scared of Gary Stevenson taking over. So they let Hitler have power because they were like, well, I'd rather have a beer with Hitler than this cunt.
They literally found like Nick Griffin upside down in a barrel of beer and said, let's get him.
Get him in power to stop this guy. This guy's insufferable. He won't stop going on about his kids and his people who can't feed their kids. I'd rather have Hitler, who at least seems like a laugh.
But by far the biggest topic we've done.
And it's also an absolute...
Way too big.
Way too big.
It's above our pay grade for sure.
And that's the first time we've said that on this podcast.
Honestly, we do not get imposter syndrome easy.
No.
The private school system really...
does work.
Bashes imposter syndrome.
Look at Nick Griffin's face. People would rather elect this guy in this country than Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, generally. Yeah. That's how terrified people are. You know, if Jeremy Corbyn is a virus, Corbyn supporters are a virus.
Fine. Yeah, sure.
You know, this is patient zero.
Okay.
Lenin and the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks. Fuck me, Nick Griffin. I mean, as an advocate for white supremacy...
he's an argument against it, right?
Looks like David Blunkett fucked a toad. It's absolutely insane. What's he doing now, Nick Griffin?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? Nick Griffin of British racism is sort of like the Skype of British racism in the way that he was an early adopter of the current form of it, right?
Yes.
He had a long build up to it, and now while it's popular, he's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Skype
Where's he gone?
had like 15 years on Zoom.
Yeah.
Lockdown came in. Didn't capitalise at all. Zoom came through.
Yeah.
Zoom is Farage.
Yeah, Zoom is yes.
And Nick Griffin is Skype.
In 2017, Nick Griffin expressed a desire to emigrate to Hungary, but was banned from the country shortly after.
That's so weird.
I guess
it's because the racists are over there, right?
But
It
Nick
seems
Griffin
weird
so
for like
racist that the racists won't take it.
But he's a British nationalist, so...
Oh, he's declared bankrupt.
I guess he probably thinks that Britain's Pakistan now.
Yes, of course. Maybe he's making those AI videos where the London's filled with shit.
But this is not about Nick Griffin.
No.
This is about the Russian Revolution and Russian history in general. But at
all times we should be just holding the idea that Nick Griffin, despite his ills, is better than all these guys.
Right.
That's what this country thinks.
Sure. But Russian history is probably my favourite history.
Yeah,
I love the Russian. It's so... I guess they're so fucked up in such a thrilling way.
Yeah.
I've always had I've had a Russian ex-girlfriend. I was seeing briefly another Russian girl. I was quite disappointed with the Russian ex-girlfriend I had.
You used to mail all the brides. We get
yes, exactly. No, because annoyingly, my Russian ex went to like NYU, was quite Americanized, was like a New York liberal basically, and I was more like, I'm not here for this experience. It's like going to Italy and eating ramen. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm here for pasta. Yeah. She was very pro-gay rights. She thought that gender roles were kind of like, should not be so rigid.
Sorry, Charlie's got up the biggest Russian baby.
This is Nadia.
Yeah, so that's nearly 8 kilos. Is that bigger than Super Antonio, the Mexican baby that you discovered last series?
I don't know.
Can you find out, please, Charlie? Sorry, your Russian liberal ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, but I didn't get the experience that I wanted from dating a Russian.
Yeah, because I think
she was. What you want is those kind of regressive conservative beliefs that kind of men should be men.
Yeah.
Then I met another Russian girl who thinks that homosexuality shouldn't be taught at schools. Mm-hmm. She thinks that Stalin was a great leader.
Yeah. That's what you want.
That's what you want. You want the experience.
Yeah, you do want the.
You're on holiday. You want the experience.
You want to eat the local food. I don't think I would like to marry a Russian or a Soviet woman.
Yeah.
I would like a Soviet. You want a Soviet masseuse.
Right.
You want someone to beat the fuck
out
of you.
In a banya. Beat the shit out of you.
Yeah. You don't want to you wouldn't want to actually introduce them to people.
Well, my dad is about to marry a Russian, actually. Tatiana.
This makes sense. This all makes sense.
Exactly.
This all makes complete sense.
Nadia was 3.5 pounds heavier than Super Antonio.
Thank you, Charlie. So
let's put the Top Gear leaderboard
of massive babies. Russia is currently in charge of Mexico. My God, that's a big baby.
And I guess
she only ate potatoes, noodles, and tomatoes
during the pregnancy.
Yeah,
right. Well, there you go.
That's what created Nadia.
If we have any pregnant listeners, which must be infinitesimal, it's a minority within a minority. Is pregnant women.
Isn't that thing about playing Mozart in the womb? Does that not make the baby smarter?
If you just play the red flag.
Or play this podcast.
You play this podcast.
They come out looking like Nick Griffin.
They will come out with Down syndrome. If you play this podcast to your child in the womb, they will come out a bit fruity.
And I guess this episode because we got so much revolution stuff to get through, and there's so much history. It's important to give as much context as we can, really.
Yeah, why is Russia so fucked?
If you're a therapist, if you're, Gabor Mate, and you're delving into the trauma.
I'd love him to whisper me to sleep.
Yeah, what would Gabor Mate say about you? I don't know.
I think he'd say, do you know what, you're fine.
Because he finds the trauma in everyone. He's a little he's a truffle pig, a traumaful pig.
I would break Gabor Mate. He's a trauma pig. You want to fuck your mum?
Yeah. So we're going to try and do that to Russia. What do you think Gabor Mate would just say? Yeah, nothing.
Say,
next.
He'd say, so how you ate 24 mince pies? I went, yes. And he went, how do you feel about that? I went, I feel fine. I'll do it again. And you go, right, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love him to soothe me to sleep. He's got a very soothing.
Yeah.
I'd love him to read me lullabies.
Very. He just got that kind of leathery intellectual face where you trust him.
Lovely kind eyebrows.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is not about Gabor Mate. This is about why. So what would Gabor Mate just find out about Russia?
Well, I guess a lot of when I'm talking about the prehistory of Russia or the beginning of the Russian state, the main source I am using is Putin.
Right. Now, again, we should stress it's not a completely objective podcast. We have a Putin shill in the room.
I think, I needed to find a lot of different sources. The only one I really trust is Putin speaking to Tucker Carlson.
Okay, fine.
So his view of Russian history. But basically going back, it's actually a Viking state, Russia, which is not a good start.
Before you go all the way back, let's just place this for the dum-dums,
right?
Because we keep forgetting to do this, and they do get annoyed.
Well, let's start with where Putin considers Russia starts in 1826.
I'd like to place the Russian. I think we should place the Russian Revolution.
Right.
But the Russian Revolution, which is what we're dealing with ultimately, 1917. Now, this is 1917 is after the Somme, just the Battle of the Somme.
All right.
And it is before. CompareTheMeerkat.com.
Yes.
Because ultimately that wouldn't make any sense because there's no market.
Yes. They have insurance, but they would not.
It's one insurance policy.
Right.
So it's price comparison sites aren't a thing in Soviet Russia.
No, they didn't really boom.
It's CompareTheDictat.com.
Go compare what? Yeah, compare is a very pointless site in Soviet Russia.
Yeah, there's no car insurance comparison sites. There's none. So that fun little sort of meerkat, that's go on, Charlie.
They pulled those from the TV when the Russian-Ukraine war kicked off
because of the accent.
Yeah, due to sort of sensitivity about.
Why didn't they put a different accent in the meerkat?
Hello, compare the meerkat.
CompareTheMeerkat.com.
Yeah, they should have made a Rasta.
Should have made a Rasta.
A Rasta meerkat.
You got Rasta mouse, Rasta meerkat.
Rasta.
There's so many different accents you could have done.
Yeah.
Comparedemarket.com.
If you spoke to us, we're
Yeah,
experts.
why haven't they got us in?
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Russian Revolution is 1917, but Putin, what does he see as the birth of his country?
He says basically a Viking prince called Rurik set up in 1826 the Kievan Rus, right, which is where Kiev is, and it was basically lots of Vikings trying to make money would sail down from Scandinavia to Constantinople to join the Varangian Guard. Do you know what that is?
Of course I don't know what the Varangian Guard is. No, I don't read science fiction. I pay my mortgage on time.
Right.
I have 2 children.
Yeah.
The highlight of my weekend genuinely was getting a new Hoover. This whole thing is I'm such a capitalist that the idea of any of this makes no sense to me. The highlight of my weekend, buying a new Hoover.
What was the new Hoover?
It fucking slaps.
What is it?
Corded. I've gone back to corded.
I've gone back to corded.
Corded is where it's at.
You can't go wrong with cording.
You can't go wrong with cordings. This shirt is from Cordings.
Yeah.
Corded Hoovers, they have more power.
They do.
And
more reliable.
More reliable. And I don't mind having to deal with a cord if it actually deals with dust.
Yep.
My house is completely it's a feral. I'm basically living with vermin essentially. Two children and my wife, is
she's shedding this time of year.
She's shedding. She's on heat. It's there's matted clumps of hair everywhere. Yeah. Anyway, that was the highlight of my weekend. Buying a new Hoover, enjoying the fruits of capitalism. The entire when you're saying that Putin starts with Kiev being is that
part
why
of the reason is the genesis of the Russian identity.
Yeah.
Comes that he says they're inexplicably linked
to Kiev,
and the Ukraine is an idea formed by even Stalin and Lenin actually,
or
like during the Soviet Union, and that they're the same peoples basically.
And that's his words.
That's his shtick.
Yeah.
His words are my words.
So we're okay. So we are amplifying. I guess we're pro Putin currently. Is that what we are? This whole series is a justification for Putin's actions in Ukraine.
He's just one of my main sources for this.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Good to know.
We need to start putting our sources. We're a proper history podcast.
We should footnote. Yeah. With
So Vladimir Putin, any interview he's given over the last 15 years, that's my main. I mean, I guess what is interesting about Putin is it's more like when being into history becomes a real red flag.
Yes.
A lot of justification of being into history or ignoring your family reading a history book, right? Or like not speaking to women because you're reading history. It's important to know your history, right? And that it's seen as generally a good thing. I guess people like Putin, it makes history quite a bad thing to be into. Because a lot of literally the reason why a lot of the problems are happening in Russia, Ukraine, is because he loves history so much.
It's applied history though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Russia is it's kind of for the Western trying to understand the Russian mind, this is a country that's borders Europe and Asia. It's sort of both and
behind
neither.
it is this terrifying endless forest.
Yeah.
Filled with kind of like wolves and kind of forest tribes, right? And basically these Vikings, where the early settlement set up was on the fur and slave trade, because there's a huge slave trade.
Yeah.
The word slave comes from Slav.
Of course.
So as a lot of the Slavs were being traded. There's a lot of white on white slavery at this time.
Disgusting. Awful. Oh, it's an abomination.
Yeah. Then Prince Vladimir in 1988, who Putin has made
1988?
Yeah. It was quite recent.
Wow.
It's quite recent.
Just before the fall of the Berlin Wall, that's where Russia...
Yeah. Who Putin has made a massive statue for this guy. He basically made this Kievan Rus Christian Orthodox and made this new identity of a Slavic Orthodox people, right?
Yeah, we should. I think another thing to bring up here is that Russian Orthodoxy is a huge part in the Russian character.
Yes.
I was trying to read into this last night because I can't really think of many things that I think about less than the Russian Orthodox Church.
Okay.
But it's just the bottom of my list at all times.
It's quite near the top for me.
Is it? Right. Well, of course, is your dad having a Russian Orthodox wedding?
No, I don't actually know what it would be called.
Right.
I don't know if I don't know if they're the most religious people.
Mail order brides?
Yeah, I don't know what. I think it's just a high five with the priest.
But if you're a sub, if you're like a kind of little, if you like getting told what to do and smacked about, I think having a Russian spouse would be really.
Well, this is
exactly
my point. You want a
want.
Russian masseuse to sort of you want a happy ending in Russia. It's a sort of sad ending where they just peg you. I think
this is a misunderstanding of the Russian woman, right? They are firm and stubborn, but they want you to be a man. So they're slapping you about to be more to slap them about. The Russian woman is saying, if you don't start hitting me, I'll hit you.
Yeah, incredible.
You better start smacking me about, or else I'm gonna. They wouldn't even deal with the cuck. You have to be a man's man, right?
Incredible. What would you do if a girlfriend said, if you don't start hitting me, I'm going to hit you?
It depends how scary they are.
Yeah, but if you want to be hit, what do you do?
You let her punch you about.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, this is
so it's this Viking slaving.
But sorry, I want to talk about the Russian. So what I was saying is the Russian Orthodoxy. I think they have a very different relationship to suffering than Protestants and Catholics.
Go on.
Right. So Catholics, obviously, they spill some milk. Oh my God! They're hysterical. Right. They're absolutely hysterical. Right. They can't be controlled. Yeah. They can't hold down a job because they're crying all the time.
Mm-hmm. We've got Finn back onto stereotypes and he's happy. It's like he's got like a dummy in his mouth.
They won't stop crying, shrieking, calling for the mama. They can't work because they're crying all the time. Protestants, they understand that suffering will happen and there's a stoicism to it, and they will, yes, life is going to be hard sometimes, but you get through it, and that's, Russians, the Russian Orthodoxy teaches that actively embracing suffering is where revelation is. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about coping, it's about throwing yourself into it.
It's the spice of life.
Suffering is the spice of life.
That's literally the Russian mentality.
And it's not about as individual stoicism, it's about collectively throwing yourself into a mass grave for the good of... They think that's how they'll be redeemed.
This is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's built for the kind of climate they're in as well.
That's it, and the constantly being invaded, which we're going to get into.
Which I guess is kind of... Weirdly, they have quite like a modern self-helpy mentality. Like all of the TikToks that are about, masculinity and take control, they're quite like Gogginsy in some ways.
In some ways, yeah.
And that's why the Great Northern War, which we'll do another episode on at some point, which is where Peter the Great comes in, that is a kind of rare war that's just the super Protestant Lutheran Swedes versus the Russian Orthodox. And it's quite interesting seeing both of their views of suffering smashing into each other. But we'll get there. So it's a Viking slaving people, already quite fucked up, right? Very backwards. It's kind of on the fringes of Europe. At this point, not much is going on. It's just probably a terrifying, lawless place, right? It's very much in the same way you have the Wild West, so it's the Wild East, right? And then to make it even more fucked up, the Mongols invade, colonize it, right? Take it over, and then it splits off into the Golden Horde, which is one of the 4 parts of the Mongol Empire when it all starts falling down. And basically, they're allowed to keep their identity. They just have to give tribute up, right? Mm-hmm. And so they get a lot of Mongol kind of culture starts coming into some more Asiatic sort of stuff, right? And eventually, basically, one of them stands up in 1480 to the Mongols. And this is seen as kind of the beginning of like Russia standing up for itself, right? And then out of this comes Ivan the Terrible in 1530, who's kind of the beginning of like the idea of a Tsar of a united Russia.
Does he call himself the Terrible?
No.
Right.
It's not like a rap name.
No.
Ivan the Terrible.
Ivan the Terrible. Well, it's quite a weird moniker because there's other terribles, aren't there?
Yeah. I feel some people, I think he also could be called Ivan the Great by some people. So it's kind of like... He's sort of like a Thatcher figure.
It's great. I guess so.
Thatcher the Terrible, Thatcher the Great.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we do it?
It's much better. What was the last the Great? I guess you could say Churchill could have the Great.
Blair the Great. No, but the problem is...
We need to have more the Greats.
The problem is that since Blair, right, and obviously Blair's incredibly divisive, since Blair, every politician is just kind of like... So it'd be like...
Starmer the boring.
Starmer the...
Yeah.
Starmer the boring. Trust the thick. Sunak the short, Brown the blind. I mean, we should call our prime ministers. It'd be more fun.
It's much more fun. Much more than just the Terrible and the Great.
David Dimbleby. For people have spoken, they've elected Brown the blind, Miliband the fat-tongued. They've elected them to office. That's loads of fun.
Yeah.
Ivan the Terrible, what does he do?
So he calls himself Tsar, which is a play on Caesar, right?
Oh, is
because
it?
he says that Moscow
Yeah.
is going to be the third Rome. Because recently, only like 40 years ago,
Yeah.
Constantinople fell to the Ottomans.
Yes.
So the first Rome has fallen to Catholicism,
Yeah.
right? Constantinople's fallen to Islam.
Yeah.
And so he's now pitching them as the centre of true Christianity.
So let's just go through the Romes. First Rome. Second Rome, Constantinople. Third Rome, Moscow.
He's saying Moscow.
Fourth Rome is what? Hitler's Berlin?
Yeah, I guess so.
Fifth Rome is... where's the current Rome?
Where's current Rome? I mean, whole city of culture, when was that?
When's it Hull?
Is it like the City of Culture, which you like get it every year, even if you're a shithole?
Yeah, so City of Culture is they give it to the shitters place.
So that is
as like a It's a participation medal, isn't
Right.
it? It's like we'll pay you money to be less shit.
Yeah, it's getting most improved in the under 14Ds.
It's literally that. So when people are boasting about, we're city of culture, it's like, yeah, that means you're fucked.
Hold up, very interesting breaking news.
Sorry, Charlie's just got a whole woman. Is this during City of Culture?
Yeah.
The whole woman.
This is how they got it.
The whole woman's been banned from defecating in public places.
Wait, is that because the new rules brought in by the City of Culture?
Or is it that they had to clean the house before they got awarded City of Culture?
And her name is Brace Hull.
Brace Hull.
Brace.
And then she squeezed it out.
But her surname's Hull and she lives in Hull.
Right.
So she must love it up there.
Yeah.
I mean, so. you can read defecate in public as two things. It's either things have gone terribly wrong, or it's a celebratory mood.
Yeah,
it's sort of like an England flag with the flare up their arse. It's like, I fucking love it here.
It's date night in Hull. Lay me down and shit on my chest.
So Ivan the Terrible declares himself the Tsar of all Russia.
Yeah.
The kind of beginning of this kind of the Tsars being this kind of controlling thing of a true Russian entity. And he does a lot of great things at early doors, right? He starts the eastward expansion, because at this point it's quite a small state, right, in Eastern Europe. He starts that kind of endless eastern expansion that every ruler...
Towards Asia, you mean?
Yeah, because you would, even looking at a map, you don't really... I've always wondered how the fuck did they get that much land? It's not really talked about.
Well, I guess it's not prime real estate, is it?
There's just nothing there. What happened is that they just keep going and be like, yeah, I guess we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And just nothing blocked them at all. There was no one there to stop and they just kept going and kept going.
And the people changed. That's what's funny.
What?
Well, then you get to like Asians.
Yeah.
So they keep walking, go, yep, there's still Russia. And you go, is it?
Well, it's like a DJ mixing, right?
Yeah, I get, yeah.
Fading two songs into each other.
Yeah.
You have white of the white, and then you end up with Koreans.
So you have Dolly Parton fading into gay K-pop.
Yeah.
Working 9 to 5. I don't know any K-pop. I don't know any songs.
You can tell.
Oh no, hang on. It'd be like working 9 to 5. What a Gangnam Style.
That is.
Yeah, that's Russia.
That's the journey of traveling through Siberia.
Yeah. Except it's not working 9 to 5. It's working 9 till midnight and then sleeping for 2 hours and having some boiled cabbage and getting back to it.
And killing your kids.
It's killing your kids. It's fucking brutal.
And then how he got Ivan the Terrible is he was obviously very bad to his people near the end. He lost his head.
Ivan the Terrible?
Yeah, he was pretty naughty.
Really?
He loved impaling people with spikes. He loved live flaying, and he'd do it himself. He did rat torture, where rats were forced to burrow into victims' bodies.
Right.
So he'd starve rats until the point that the only way they could get out is burrowing through them.
Imagine Charlie does that as his sex club, I imagine.
I mean, it had a lot of very Berlin sex club vibes. Like, he'd love... tying people up in like a house, and then just chucking bombs at it. He absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this guy, even though I think he's quite a good guy, he ends up killing his own son in a rage.
Yeah.
He had anger problems, I feel.
Like Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
All the way around.
They're both artists in many ways. So he kills his own son in a rage, which causes the succession crisis, which ends up with the Romanovs.
And this is the start of the Romanov Dynasty, which is in what, the 17th century?
No. It's it will be late 1500s.
But then I remember when we get up to Tsar Nicholas II, they celebrate it's a 300-year dynasty, isn't it? The Romanovs. So
1613.
Oh, I guess so.
Wow. So this is what the Russian Revolution. When we get to it, this is the end of a 300-year dynasty that starts.
Which starts here, and it starts because Ivan the Terrible killed his own son. And the way that the Romanovs come in, basically, it's like no one knows who's going to be king, so they end up choosing the grandson of Ivan the Terrible's first wife, Anastasia Romanov.
Yeah.
He ends up being there basically because he has the best claim to the throne, and he's pissed the least people off.
Right.
And that's how this 300-year dynasty kicks off. We'll skip through a lot of stuff, but basically Peter the Great in 1672 is born, and he begins Russia as a imperial empire, basically. The Russian Empire is born with him. He travels Europe and tries to modernize this very backwards country, right?
Yeah, because he sees Europe and then he sees Russia and he realizes that they're all thick.
He travels Europe, notably Amsterdam and London, and the technology. He's amazed by all the technology. He goes in disguise and goes through all of Europe and learns a lot, and basically says we need to modernize. Also, Russia, though it's massive, at this point is entirely landlocked. Right. That's partly what's keeping it so backward, right?
Much like my wife.
Much like, yeah.
Massive,
there's no roots in.
Massive but landlocked.
So in land won in the Great Northern War against the Protestant Swedes, on the corner of the Baltic, build a planned city, St. Petersburg, right? And this is an inhospitable bog on a frozen wasteland, really nasty piece of land, but it's like a port. And he decides to build this grand European city. No one wants to move there. It's like, you know, when Channel 4 moved to Leeds.
Yes,
he tries to move all of his intelligentsia there. He builds it with serfs at gunpoint, right?
Right, and so remember, serfs are slaves.
Yeah,
serfdom.
Yes, there's certain like it's like a peasant slave where you're kind of a slave to the land, right? In a way,
the land owns you.
The land, yeah, you're owned by the land.
Okay.
And the person who owns the land, of
right.
course.
So so I mean, but if you were a serf, and someone was like, "No, you're not a slave. You're a serf," he'd be like, "What's the?"
He'd be like,
and you'd be like, "Exactly. That's why you're a serf."
So serfdom's all over Russia and stays in, like, kind of the feudal system stays in Russia maybe like 300, 400 years longer than anywhere else in Europe.
And this is part of the thing we're coming to, is that Russia is much more backward than anywhere in Europe for a lot longer than Europe.
A lot longer. Even they have lots of modernizers who come in. Each Tsar undoes the thing that the last Tsar does at many points.
It's
very
much
Peter the Great, you have Catherine the Great, but then you'll have someone else come in, because huge parts of the Russian spirit and a lot of the kind of contrasts is always, do we stick to our Slavic traditional roots, which separate us from Europe? We're not those basically gay Europeans.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot of that.
Yep.
And you still see that in Putin's Russia today. A lot of it is like, we are standing up for the Orthodox Russian identity. You know, when he was talking about how Putin did that whole thing about being cancelled, right? And that cancel culture's come for him as well.
Right.
And he wanted to actually be a stand against the wokeness of Europe.
What, by invading Ukraine?
Partly.
Well, did he get cancelled for invading Ukraine?
He got cancelled just because he stands up for traditional kind of values.
Such a pro-Putin podcast.
But I mean, it's interesting that he's pitched himself as the anti-woke guy.
Right.
That Europe has collapsed because they let gay people live.
Well, he's got less space to maneuver, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He can't really come out now as like in favour of gay rights.
Obviously, he's got like a big grip on Russia. Do you think if a video came out of him getting pegged by like a trans fat teenager,
you know what, that would really undermine the image, because he's got such an amazing, like, there's nothing he can do brutality wise that will get him off the throne, because it just adds to his aura.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if it came out that he was just like, he was beating the shit out of gay people in his cellar, it'd be like, well, yeah,
that's why I vote for him.
But if it came out that those gay people were pegging him,
if
then
there was
that changed everything.
a video that got shown of Putin being pegged by a fat trans teenager, then everyone comes in the next day and he's like, right, what are we doing? And everyone's like,
and he's loving it. In the video, he's loving it.
He's loving it. I think him loving it is the real problem. He's like,
yeah, but then again, this is the problem with the Russian Orthodox attitude to suffering is that people would be like, this is a great man.
Well, the
who
pegging is
quite
Russian Orthodox, I guess.
Is it?
I guess in some way, the suffering, the kind of pleasure from being from the suffering.
It's
self-flagellation.
It's G-spot up the arse. It's eating.
You can only find true pleasure in the meaning of suffering.
Is being pegged.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that really. It's a bit of a hypothetical. I guess it's a counterfactual history.
Yeah. What if?
One of the great counterfactuals.
What if instead of Peter the Great, it was Peter the Pegger, and he'd been pegged to shit, and that was the right founding myth of St. Peggersburg.
St. Peggersburg.
Peggergrad.
St. Pegger's bum.
St. Pegger's bum. This brilliant city on the lake. St. Pegger's bum.
So basically, St. Petersburg is the most important city in this story, and you can't really have the Russian Revolution the same way without the kind of
it all happens. Yeah,
and quite the unique nature of St. Petersburg as a city. It's built on this frozen wasteland that no one wants to live on, but it's an extraordinary city. I've been to St. Petersburg.
Of course you have.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's this amazing, beautiful city that kind of looks like Paris, but it's also got this kind of New York grid system. So it's got these huge roads, but incredible houses, but then it also has those kind of Asiatic domes on it as well. Amazing city. But it's built at gunpoint by serfs. 100,000 people die building it.
100,000?
Yeah, it's literally built on the bones of peasants. So it's this beautiful city that's emerged out of the frozen wasteland, literally built on Russian bones. Right?
Up the bums.
Up the bums.
Yep, Peggersburg.
And for like the first kind of like 40 or so years, wolves still roam the streets because it's such a wild part of the world.
Yeah.
But somehow emerges
Looking
is
for a
this
good time.
Beautiful city. It's kind of the center of European Russia. It's quite a European.
It's a westward-facing city.
Exactly, and that's also part of the tension between Moscow and St. Petersburg. Moscow sees itself as the real Russia. St. Petersburg, they say there's a lot of gay guys in there, doing fruity stuff.
Well, not in St. Peggersburg.
There's a lot of fruity guys in St. Petersburg.
No.
But then whenever a European visits St. Petersburg, they're like, these are the most wild, feral people in the world.
I'm getting pegged to shit. This is better than Berlin, man. You want to go? You think Berlin's hot? You want to go St. Petersburg? So look, we've been chatting for a while. You've been rolling around in your communist pig shit. Let's get to the meat of this story, which I reckon we should start just after the Crimean War, which kind of shows
Decembrist Revolt. You want to do that?
I don't care what that is.
Okay.
Let's start with. There's going to be so many revolts.
Yes.
Let's start with the aftermath of the Crimean War, where Russia, the sort of great game between Britain and Russia. Yeah. It exposes Russia's weakness on the international stage.
Yep.
And so there is a reformist Tsar comes in called Alexander II, who is Nicholas II's grandfather, I believe.
Yeah.
Alexander II emancipates the serfs.
Right.
He ends slavery.
Emancipation.
You're now on your land. The serfs are running around Russia. So serfs are no longer slaves.
Surf and turf.
Serfs
are emancipated from the turf.
The surf and turf. So, and this is one of the great things about researching this topic is that I got to listen to Anthony Beevor waddle on for a while.
Right,
I do love him.
Yeah. Big up the Beeves.
Big up the Beeves. I'm a big fan of Beevor. I've always said that.
Yeah. Anthony Bevo.
Anthony Bevo. You know the rules.
You know the rules.
Imagine if it turned out Bevo was related to Anthony Beevor.
What a disowned son.
Yeah. Just Anthony Beevor's grandson is Bevo on TikTok. Anyway, Bevo Stalingrad is a very different book.
Bevograd. I think we should make cities named after Bevo.
Bevo would just try and swallow Stalingrad by Anthony Beevor in one go. Listen, right. So what Anthony Beevor says is that one of the large problems with the serfs being emancipated by Alexander II is that it's not freedom in that you're forced to buy the land you're working on, which means you're immediately in debt. So this huge class of people that have been freed from slavery have now just been put into sort of another form of slavery where they owe the government money.
Brilliant, I'm free. Oh, I'm a fucking slave.
So I got to work this to pay off the debt, right?
Yeah, so you don't pay them anything because they're slaves.
Yeah.
You free them from being slaves, and now you're saying, well, can you afford to buy this land? No, I've no money. So. Well, then you have to work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're basically enslaved so you can afford it.
Yeah.
Are you going to pay me enough to afford it? No.
Of course not. So it's slavery under another name.
I mean, this is in the 1800s as well. So this is, if we're talking as well about the Russian mentality, right? So this is when Dostoyevsky's writing a lot of this time, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I've been watching on TikTok, right? What's happened recently is that the Dostoyevskyan very Russian idea of morality has been made into sort of motivational TikToks. Yeah,
this gets you going.
This gets me fired up.
So this is your my equivalent is watching like a Nuremberg rally.
Yeah, yeah. This is a good way of understanding where the Russian mind is at. This is in the mid 1800s. A period of early industrialization, the emancipation of the serfs, but there's still what Dostoyevsky's writing about. Tolstoy, for example, is writing about social realism. He's trying to empathize with the serfs, try and bring their stories to light. Mm-hmm. Dostoyevsky is basically saying Russia's getting too gay.
Yeah,
European hedonism is decaying the great Russian spirit.
Yes,
and then you can see why.
Man is a creature of suffering, and suffering is his greatest desire. Oh, he will curse it, spit upon it, cry out to the heavens that he wishes for peace, for salvation. But the moment you strip him of his torment, what does he become? A fattened beast, lying idle in the field, rotting in the sun. No, he will return to suffering, to chaos, because in pain there is motion, and in motion, life. Without suffering, without struggle, without the gnawing hunger of despair, what is left? A man who is nothing, a man who never was.
Right.
I mean, that sums Russia up perfectly, doesn't it?
Sums
Without
it up,
suffering, there is nothing.
So, yeah, I mean, my girlfriend has all of her TikToks are basically saying nothing's ever your fault. They're very like, that's what all female, it's like, just take a day off.
Yeah.
You've worked too hard.
You deserve it.
You deserve it. And all of my TikToks, I'm lying in bed saying, only in Tain is there truth.
All my TikToks get taken down.
Do they?
For hate speech.
Once you come back to them?
I come back, yeah.
All of your save folder on TikTok is just banned.
Just gone banned, removed. This is Nazism.
But anyway, with the emancipation of the serfs and the kind of growing revolutionary movements, Marx is writing in industrialized London, and with industrialization comes a lot of these kind of new revolutionary theories for a changing world, right? And there's kind of early forms of revolution come from the Narodnik movement, which is this kind of, which I guess kind of feels sort of relevant today. It's like this intelligentsia uni movement, right?
Yeah.
Of people talking about how the future Russia's the peasants, right? They believe that the true Russia's the peasants. We need to really do a revolt that frees the peasants. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of these kind of posh uni kids go and live and work with the peasants to get and the peasants get the police to kill a lot of them as well.
Yeah, because they're the most annoying cunts you've ever met. Yeah,
it's sort of like white kids going to Rwanda and building a school. There's all these people saying, no, the true Russian is the peasant. The peasant's like, who the fuck are these fruits?
Freaks? Fucking gay boys from St. Bummersburg. St. Bummersgrad, what's it called? St. Peggersburg.
St. Peggersburg.
Don't come here, tell me how to live from St. Peggersburg. But this is the great moment, right? That, we're talking about Dostoyevsky and Tolstoy. I've not really read. I tried to read Tolstoy once, interrailing, and I ended up just I used it.
Who are you interrailing?
So, no, I was going through. I'm interrailing women. I must stress that I'm completely straight. I don't like this fruity communist history. I was interrailing through Europe, and I ended up. The main thing I remember about Tolstoy's War and Peace is that I killed a wasp with it.
Right. It's a big book.
Big book.
Tolstoy
done.
is these great epic narratives, but he does get bogged down in talking in detail about land reforms and really dry stuff.
But what I was going to say is that the amazing thing about this history is that it is like a Dostoyevsky or a Tolstoy novel in that we're not even close to the reign of Nicholas II, which is where you'd maybe start this topic, and there are narrative flags in the sand that come back later. So Alexander,
it feels like every Russian is imbued with a sense of narrative.
Yeah, impenetrable narrative.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just built with these complicated moral. Everyone, the choices they make are so dramatic and operatic.
So Alexander II is assassinated just after in 1881, and his carriage is blown up. Right,
because even though Alexander II is the great reformer, it's a lot of these reforms which are not fast enough.
Well, because they're making life easy for people, and the Russians don't want that. They want to be pegged till they die. So they go, "Fuck this guy! This guy's getting rid of suffering. What is a man without suffering? He is nothing." So he's
got an armoured carriage. Someone chucks a bomb at it.
Yeah,
right.
Blows him to shit.
Well, no, he crawls out.
Yeah, he's got no legs.
I think he's got
no legs
when he crawls out.
He crawls out. His legs have to be taken off. And then he gets put into the palace, and his grandson, little Nicky, little soft, sweet, sensitive Nicky, who ends up being Nicholas II, he's just been out fucking rollerblading because he's gay, right?
He's a fruity soul.
He's a fruity soul. He's been rollerblading, crop top, Then finally his dad's like, listen, mate, your granddad's dying. Take those fucking rollerblades off. Take that dick out your mouth and come and say goodbye to your granddad. Yeah. Right? He slings his rollerblades over his, and then he walks in. And Alexander II, grandpa, is lying there with no legs, bleeding out,
And Nicholas, the Russians are like, I wish I was fucking you.
Oh, God.
Fucking suffering
you don't know you're born, mate. Bleeding out with no legs. You've never been more alive. He's literally died. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. At least your life has meaning now you've got no legs. Right? And so Nicholas II is a young boy, is brought in with his rollerblades or ice skates or whatever. Wasn't really listening to the podcast. Comes in and he's forced to say goodbye and reckon with. Imagine, I imagine we all have quite similar stories of saying goodbye to a beloved grandparent. Right. It's all quite weepy care home stuff. Bye bye, love you, whatever. Oh, no more eclairs. No more eclairs. Night. He's going in to see his granddad's been his legs blown off by a fucking anarchist, and this traumatizes him.
100%.
Traumatizes
builds
him
that
totally.
Lifelong kind of paranoia, suspicion of revolutionaries.
Of anything that's not autocracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you have his dad, Alexander III,
who, in the tradition of just undoing what your dad did, he comes in with counter measures, right? Intense reaction to the reformist stuff, tightened censorship. Because also, Alexander II, with his reforms, he relaxed censorship, which was kind of the beginning of socialism in Russia, because now a lot of books are flooding in. Even though it was religiously orthodox and it was strict on that, no religious texts, books like Marx could now come into the universities because they weren't considered
it's interesting.
A religious text.
Yeah, the censors should have banned Marx,
but they didn't realise how powerful the book would be.
They thought, well, this is fucking boring. Who's going to read this? When Alexander III gets in, this is another little narrative flag in the sand. There is an assassination attempt by none other than Lenin's brother,
Sasha. Well, they call him Sasha.
Sasha, who is we'll get to Lenin later in the series, but very quickly, middle class, comfortable family, all sort of happy families, domestic bliss, and then suddenly they find out that their son has been caught up in a plot to assassinate the Tsar, and it's all because he has gone to university, been influenced.
He
went to uni and started reading Karl Marx and got
Alexander
radicalized. Basically, Marx is like stealing young men. He's basically Andrew Tate, Karl Marx, in that young men are reading him and getting judged up, and he's comfortable. Suddenly they're like, fuck, I want to be top G. I want to fuck the Tsar.
And that moment when his older brother dies is one of the key turning points in Lenin's life.
He gets hanged for trying to assassinate Alexander III. Now, Alexander III, as you said, he really doesn't like the Jews.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
100%. He clamps down on reforms. There was one Jewish member of the huge group that killed his father. Yeah. And so they said, well, it's definitely all of the Jews' fault. And throughout this story, so Jewish pogroms, we often talk about Nazi, because of the Holocaust, it kind of takes a lot of the narratives about Jewish massacres. Yep. But the pogroms were fucking... Basically, every time something wrong in Russia happened, which is all the time, they would use that as an excuse to
the Holocaust was a symphony... the pogroms are a guitar solo. Terrifyingly feral, unleashed, AC/DC.
You're going to go see the pogroms later?
Yeah. Tearing through the streets. It's like the worst England fans abroad in Marseille. Garden chairs everywhere. Get out your cafes, Jews, go home. All that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of violent pogroms, and the government were like, you do you. This is your business. Jews were limited to the Pale of Settlement, which is this small slither of land.
So we get to Nicholas II. Now he's a young, wet. He's a boy of St. Peggersburg.
Yes.
You can take the boy out of St. Peggersburg,
but you can't take the peg out of the bum.
He's a young, sort of effete, little weak boy, and he's not been trained to become Tsar. Because he's 21, his dad's only 49, they've got time to train him up. And his dad is like, this guy's fucking, who cares? This guy's a little wet squib. But then suddenly, because his dad is such a hard-drinking Russian lad, he just immediately dies of a heart attack, I think.
Which seems to be a common theme throughout.
Well, his liver failure. He dies. His liver just packs up.
Royal lines, you have the alpha dad with the cuck son. Yes. And that seems to happen with royal lines so much. Yeah. The kind of more alpha the daddy, the more cuck the sonny.
Yeah. And so he just fucking corks it at what, 49, 50? Yeah. Something like that.
And so suddenly, Nicholas II comes to the throne in 1894. How old is he when he comes to the throne?
22, I believe.
And to show... as a kind of omen of what's to come, to celebrate Nicholas II coming to the throne, they say we're going to give free gifts and food and celebration to
the coronation.
It's
free bread.
It's coronation chicken, stuff like that.
Oh god, I fucking love coronation.
But they said
chicken.
There's only a limited amount.
Don't you?
What?
I love coronation chicken.
Oh, do you?
Do you not like coronation chicken?
Yeah, I do quite like it. You look like coronation chicken.
I bet you'd say it's monarchist fare. I
like coronation chicken.
Raisins, got raisins in it.
Yeah, I love it.
I think a baguette with coronation chicken is actually really nice.
No, you'd like a
borscht out of a cabbage.
You'd like revolution borscht.
Yeah, there we go.
Like. Just wet cabbage. Throw that at the king.
But basically, he said that he said there's only a limited amount of food, right?
Yeah.
So then everyone turns up super early. 500,000 people turn up because they're so hungry, right? And then there's a stampede. 1,300 people die.
It's like Russian Hillsborough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then they're like brilliant. For them, it's like a celebration. It's like a carnival because 1,300 people died. They're like brilliant.
Well, that's less than normal.
Well, yeah, but it's also
normal day. That's
it's
great.
also like they're lucky them. They must be alive.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Everyone is.
Yeah, everyone's dead.
The stampede is to who gets to die.
Yes, of course.
Everyone is fighting to be trampled
because their life only has meaning if they're trampled to death looking for bread.
And people dying. We lucky few.
Yeah.
So and then Nicholas II attends a ball that night, which is
he's celebrating all the people dying.
Exactly,
because that's the only way that anything means anything. But he marries Queen Victoria. God rest her soul. Minute silence for Queen Victoria.
Gone but not forgotten.
Gone but not forgotten. I love you wherever you are. He marries Queen Victoria's granddaughter, I think.
But everyone in the aristocracy in Europe is one of Victoria's grandchildren.
That's true. She has hundreds of granddaughters.
Yeah.
This one is pretty ill. She probably have nowadays, you'd call it like ME or something. Right. She's just chronically ill, but she's quite fit by all accounts.
Yeah.
But she's German.
A Hessian.
She's a Hessian.
Right.
She's not a Sack.
Yeah.
She's from Hesse.
Yeah.
And they fall in love, her and Nicholas, and they write disgusting love letters. Do you know this?
No.
So they write love letters to each other, and they have nicknames for each other's genitals.
What's the nicknames?
Right. So she calls hers Lady,
right,
and his is Boysy.
Stick his Boysy in her lazy.
I don't think they say it like that. I think they say things like,
"What's his arse called?"
Daddy. How's Daddy today? Daddy's bad.
Well, how about you try and find out how Daddy is?
Why don't you shut Boysy up, Daddy, and leave me alone?
Or is it Grandpa? Pay Grandpa a visit before he dies.
Yes. No, you've got to pay the piper.
You've got to
pay the piper. And then she would call her periods the military engineer.
Really?
Yeah. Which is lovely,
Where did
isn't
you find this?
This is on Empire.
Right.
Yeah, so they'd write letters to each other, and they'd they were in love because they wrote this disgusting tweet. They probably called when Boysy meets Lady. It's figgy pudding or something. It's gross like that. But they'd say, "How's Boysy today?" And he replied, "Boysy's ready." Boysy's always ready. And then she'd say, "Lady's out of action. Ladies, the military engineers,
ladies kaput.
The military, ladies
bloodbath,
cunt's fucked."
Yes. Sorry, Nicholas, cunt's fucked.
She just reply, "My cunt's fucked." How's Boysy? Yeah, Boysy's ready. Well, my cunt's fucked, so Boysy's got to just play by himself. But what my point was to say, like sexting has really gone downhill, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's got so gross now.
Yeah.
There's no kind of twee. There's no literature to it anymore. There's no literacy to sexting.
Well, if you're sexting, it's normally quite spur of the moment while you're horny, just going fuck, fuck, fuck. Yeah. I feel the letter, the writing it, having to get the wax seal like that, hand it to someone else to send for you. You have to really consider your horniness.
Yeah, because you can't write fuck my cunt till it bleeds. Seal.
Yeah, because you're going to read it through and go like, well, that's a bit rich.
Much. Cross that out. Yeah, cross that out. Lady. Why doesn't Boysy pay Lady a visit? Disgusting.
Because what's rare about these two is that they are truly in love.
Yes.
Which for political marriages,
I'm not a fan of.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Normally, these marriages are forced together and they're deeply unhappy. These guys do truly love each other.
Boysy's hard for Lady.
Yeah.
Lady's dripping wet, frothing at the mouth.
Nicholas's head's so buried in the Tsarina's muff.
Lady, please. Please. Respect the lady.
He rarely comes up for air and misses what's going on around the country, which is basically Russia has industrialized in the space of 40 years as opposed to the space of 200 years. So it skipped a lot of stages.
Yes.
So this sort of jarring lurch forward means that revolution's in the air, basically, because it's not happened gradually or naturally. It's become unhinged. It's eking at the seams.
And Nicholas II is a complete autocrat. There is no politics is allowed. There's nothing. So any party is forbidden. So they have to do it all in secret. To be a czar, you have to be prime minister, president, monarch and field marshal all
Wash
in
the
one
kits,
go.
clean the boots.
You've got to do everything. Cut up the oranges for the boys. It's everything in one go, and he is so completely unprepared for it because his head is stuck up Alexander's muff or whatever.
Yeah.
What's his wife called? Alexandra, yeah. Alexandra's stinky old lady. And blah, blah, blah. He's awful. He's terrible. But
something that really starts to put one of the first nails in his coffin is he wants to expand colonially out in the east into Manchuria, which is kind of northern China at the far reaches of the Russian Empire. China. But this is the beginning of who I can't wait to do an episode on, the kind of beginning of the Japanese Empire. So Japan, who have come out of isolation, have gone around the world and studied, are turning into the psychopaths they become in World War II.
Yeah.
And this is a really important moment actually in the shift in kind of colonial politics in many ways. They start a war over parts of Manchuria, kind of Korea, called the Russo-Japanese War. And basically the Japanese, who everyone underestimates because they're not white, fuck the Russians up, the disorganized Russians. And this is such a true humiliation.
I mean, you think about who loves suffering more, Russians versus Japanese.
Yeah.
I mean, how that war even ends in anything other than both sides killing themselves, I don't understand.
Well, they're slightly different. Russia's suffering is more like, this is my personal journey with suffering. Whereas the Japanese suffering is about politeness and respect.
Yeah.
Japanese suffering is, because I respect you and I don't want to disrespect you, I'm going to kill myself.
Yes.
Like this is a racist sketch that I can't do, but I wanted to do, I'd love to do a sketch of kind of moving to Tokyo and trying to make friends.
Yeah.
But every time any minor inconvenience happens, they harikiri themselves. So you can't build a friend group because it'd be like, they might accidentally spill a drink on you. And like, no, it's fine. I am so sorry.
And you go,
I cannot build any relationships because at any moment, they're just waiting. They're just waiting to disrespect you so they can kill themselves.
Our stag do has gone, the numbers are dropping. So the Russo-Japanese
But this is a huge humiliation because this is the first time in a proper war a non-white power has beaten a white power since the colonial age, right?
Terrifying.
And it's kind of changing all the stuff we talked about eugenics, right?
Yep.
This flies in the face of it, right? Because the whites will see at the top.
It's anti-science. The result of this war makes no sense. It's anti-intellectual. It's a disgrace. So
it ruins morale, and it's also very costly, and so famines are starting. People are starving.
People are always hungry.
But they're always starving. For example, I was reading about the Russian Revolution. I was speaking to my sister, who was saying things like about Putin. It's like, I think the tide in Russia is going to change for Putin because it's like economically getting really tough. And I'm like, at what point in Russia's entire history has it not been economically tough for the people?
They love it.
They fucking love it. It's when people talk about, you even see articles saying, the Russian economy is going down, maybe they're going to turn on Putin. They could go so much further. This isn't scraping the... This isn't even touching the surface.
They fucking love it.
Yeah.
They want it up their arse.
When was the golden age? When was the...
There's never been a golden age of Russia. It's just one long shitty trough. The entire thing is they've just going with a curly straw. They love nothing more than having the shit kicked out of them. There's never been in Russia's history a democratic transition of power.
No.
Never.
Yeah.
Not once.
Yeah.
No one's ever been allowed to buy more than one loaf of bread at one time in Russia. And they love it. If they see anyone with 2 sticks of bread, they go, "You fucking, what are you, gay?"
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What are you going to eat one? What are you going to do the other one? Shove it up your ass. You want to go live in St. Peggy Bum. Charlie's just got up a montage of the giant Russian cabbage competition. I mean, this is what these guys do for fun.
Yeah.
They're eating cabbage, which is, cabbage is probably the most boring vegetable.
Yeah.
For all it's massive,
kind of bitter,
flavorless but bitter.
Yeah.
And beetroot, beetroot tastes of mud.
Yeah.
And these people are putting them into soups, and that's a good day for these people. You can't eat cabbage and beetroot.
Yeah. Have you ever had a Russian salad?
Oh fucking hell! Russian salad's
it's
grim.
Like diced. Like cucumber and mayonnaise, basically.
And vinegar.
And part of the reason why the Russian cuisine is the way it is because it's basically landlocked. Doesn't know sea. Everything is kind of tinned.
Pickled.
Yeah.
It's a pickled people. So the Russian-Japanese war has been a disaster. The Tsar is autocratic and yet weak. There's a great quote, there's nothing worse than an autocracy without an autocrat.
Yeah.
So it's a big cuck at the top. And in 1905, in January... a massive protest happens.
So Father Georgy Gapin, a Russian Orthodox priest, leads a peaceful protest in Senate Square in St. Petersburg, demanding...
Peggy's Bum.
So St. Peggy's Bum, sorry, because the name keeps changing.
Yes, but not yet.
Yeah, so it changed from St. Peggy's Bum to St. Up the Arsey. It depends who's
St.
in...
Peggy's Bum sounds too German. And when the World War I breaks out, they go, we can't have a city called St. Peggersburg. That's obviously what the Germans are doing all the time. We'll have to call it Peggergrad.
Yeah.
We call it Pegyadad.
We can't call it Pegyadad, a Russian name.
Yeah.
He leads a peaceful protest to demand free speech and a constitutional government like they have in Europe. And he's still pro-Tsar, this guy. Like he views the Tsar still as the little father, which is the kind of view of... Because the relationship between the Tsar and the Russian people as well, which goes back to Ivan the Terrible, which links to Putin's, they actually view... The reason why there is still some love for the Tsar is Russians view the Tsar as a way of getting around bureaucracy. There's a direct relationship between the leader and the people, and because they have a suspicion of the kind of bureaucrats who might corrupt things, having one person who can...
Bureaucracy gets in the way of suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to suffer now.
Yeah.
I want someone to just shoot me in the head.
I don't want it to get...
I don't want there to be a debate about how I get shot. I want to die now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's asking for the 8-hour working day.
Yes.
That's a big thing because currently it's like 12, 13 hours.
Yeah, because it's also factories have just come in, so a lot of these kind of workers' rights, they haven't really worked this stuff through.
No.
12-hour days, no right to unionize, all this sort of stuff. And then this is the original Bloody Sunday, I guess.
Is this the first Bloody Sunday?
There's been so many Bloody Sundays.
In our Iran series, we found out there is a different bloody day of the whole week. But when was the first Bloody Sunday?
I think it might be, yeah.
I think it is. I think it's the first. Okay, the first ever Bloody Sunday.
Yeah, and it works like most Bloody Sundays.
It's a Sunday, but actually it's not, is it? Because they're on the wrong calendar. Russians,
they're on the Julian calendar or the Gregorian.
So they're about a few days out.
Yeah, I think they're on the Gregorian, one of the two. So the problem is all of the movements and moments are named after months and dates. February Revolution, October Revolution, the October Manifesto, all this sort of stuff. But they're all wrong because it's a different calendar. Yeah. So it's very confusing.
It is very confusing.
And basically, the soldiers massacre.
It's a massive protest, and then the Cossacks come in and they just start impaling, shooting.
Yeah. A peaceful protest.
And in the aftermath of Bloody Sunday, the Tsar is kind of forced into make some constitutional reforms. Right, I reckon we should leave this here. We've been chatting a long old time. Yeah. Now, one thing before we go, we must say that while this is all happening, the Tsar has been shoving Boysy up lady like nobody's business. Boysy's been shoved down that colossal mine, and they've had 4 daughters, 4 terrible, ugly daughters.
Right.
Which is not what you need. You need a son. And finally, in 1904, a son, a beautiful baby boy, is born, Alexei Nikolaevich. But he's just 11 days old when he starts bleeding from the navel.
You lucky boy.
Oh my God.
Auspicious.
A gift from God, a son who just bleeds out of his belly. Now, this is obviously terrifying. And he has been cursed with the terrible wife's genes of haemophilia. Mm-hmm. They don't know what to do, and so they start looking...
Which it sounds too similar to haemophilia.
It's not...
Which is the paedophiles who go for 12 to 15.
12 to 15-year-olds, yeah. So, sorry, he's not a hemophile. He's a hemophile, which means if you cut him, he can't stop bleeding. Yeah. It's not, if you cut me, I fuck 14-years-olds. Yeah. It's not that. That's a different thing.
If you cut me, I bleed paedophilia.
I bleed 14-year-old girls.
I'm a pedo till I die. There's not a lot of that sort of stuff going on.
No, he's not a paedophile or a hemophile. He's a hemophiliac. Anyway, his parents start looking around for anything to help keep this boy alive. The life expectancy of a hemophile, the life expectancy of a hemophile is not good, actually. Right. If you get banged up for it, your only hope
What is it? What? A blood disease. What is it?
Haemophilia?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the clotting. No blood clot.
No blood clot
clotting. He's got no dirty blood clots, this boy. His body doesn't form them.
Yeah.
So
clotted blood, like clotted cream.
Yes, there's no clotted blood. Oh, I love strawberries and clotted blood.
Well, there's clotted blood on the scones. It'd be lovely,
Scones, strawberry jam and cream clad. So anyway, they start looking around for anyone to help keep this boy alive because the life expectancy is not much more than 13 in this day and age for hemophile. And in our next episode, we will deal with the mad monk.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Rasputin.
Rasputin.
Now, Rasputin...
Rasclad Putin. It's basically Putin with dreadlocks. It's the Rasclad Putin.
Rasclad Putin. Yeah.
Hello, I'm not Putin. I'm Rasclad Putin.
Yeah. That's what we're
and he does kind of look like Putin with sort of dreadlocks.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Rasclat Putin comes into this story.
He's Putin on holiday in Jamaica.
We've got to end this episode. Rasclat Putin we'll deal with next time. Now, every episode of this series, it could be 5, it could be 6, we don't know yet. That's already on the Patreon. You can join for £3 a month and get early access to series as well as a bonus episode. And we just did our first ever live stream episode as well. So there's lots of fun over there. But either way, we will see you next time for the next chapter in this epic story of revolution and Gary Stevenson and Rasclat Putin. See you next time.